stuff. And I thought, you know what? Fair play. If he does go out and fight Anthony Joshua, which I wouldn't advise because that would be extremely dangerous, then fair play if he was to do that. And all the critics and people like myself would have to shut the hell up, because I always said he's looking for fights that were manufactured, looking for fights that were predetermined. And by that, I don't mean fake fights. I don't mean fixed fights. I mean fights where...
Boxing insiders had their own sharp reactions when the Jake Paul versus Tank Davis discussions first surfaced, breaking down the situation with brutal honesty. The weight mismatch became impossible to ignore, with experts calling it an absolute joke, as they examined the staggering size difference between the two fighters. But nothing prepared the boxing community for just how embarrassing this potential matchup would become, with Paul's team seemingly charging forward despite reality screaming otherwise. While analysts tried to make sense of how such a fight could even be considered, Paul's camp only added fuel to the fire, proving that controversy sells better than competitive integrity.
One thing, that's called being a bully. It was bad enough when he fought Mike Tyson, a man that was 58 years old, and he was walking around like, I just beat the baddest man on the planet. I just destroyed Mike Tyson and went out there and I beat him, and him and his brother are all celebrating and shit like that. It's like, dude, what are you doing? What don't you understand about this?
The numbers don't lie, and when you break them down piece by piece like a complex puzzle, the picture becomes crystal clear. Jake Paul, walking around as a natural cruiserweight, would be facing a man who has spent his entire professional career as a lightweight. The sheer physics of such an encounter defies everything boxing has taught us about fair competition. This isn't David versus Goliath. This is David being asked to fight Goliath's bigger brother while carrying extra weight around his ankles.
If you want respect from your peers, if you want everyone on the planet to look at you and take you seriously and give you credit as a boxer, you have to take on challenges that are real. You have to go up against someone that keeps you up at night, against someone that gets you out of bed in the morning to go for a run because the fear of them beating you down is real. Not going up against someone that is so small. If you were to go up to this guy in a bar and try and start a fight with them...
What makes this situation even more disappointing is how it exposes the manufactured nature of modern boxing entertainment. Paul's supporters tried to frame this as legitimate competition, but the weight disparity tells a different story entirely. When seasoned boxing minds examine the technical aspects, they see a mismatch so severe it borders on dangerous. Tank Davis, despite his explosive power and championship credentials, would be entering a physical disadvantage so pronounced that skill alone might not be enough to overcome basic physics.
In order to get their fix of real, meaningful matchups. People are not watching boxing in the United States of America. That has left a hole that the broadcasters have looked to fill, and they've done this with influencer boxing, which brings a completely different audience to the game. Every promoter and broadcaster on this planet is to blame for this situation that we are finding ourselves in right now. They've opened the door to clowns, and now we've got ourselves a circus. It is a travesty that Gervonta Davis, one of the best on the planet, at the peak of his powers, has all these great fights on the table, the Shakur Stevensons, the Keyshawn Davises, all these types of fights that we could get excited about. It is ridiculous that he now is going elsewhere to get more money to fight a joke fight against Jake Paul. Do I blame him? No. Do I blame Jake Paul?
Gareth A. Davies delivered perhaps the most scathing assessment of the proposed matchup, calling out the fundamental problems with refreshing directness. Davies pointed out that Davis has come up 3 weight divisions just to be considered for such a fight, describing the entire scenario as embarrassing for the sport. His analysis cut through the promotional noise to reveal the uncomfortable truth that many were thinking, but few were willing to say publicly. This wasn't about Davis proving himself against a larger opponent. This was about exploitation masquerading as competition.
For Anthony Joshua to fight Jake Paul, but 8 inches in height difference, 7 weight divisions between them, 5 stone, 70 pounds between them. It's a joke. It's a circus fight as opposed to a disgrace of a fight, which
The veteran journalist's words carried extra weight because they came from someone who has witnessed decades of boxing evolution. Davies has seen legitimate super fights, watched natural weight progressions, and covered genuine competitive mismatches. His assessment wasn't coming from a place of bias against Paul specifically, but from a deep understanding of what separates legitimate competition from manufactured controversy. When he labeled it a circus fight, he wasn't just criticizing the participants, he was mourning what boxing loses when spectacle trumps sport. Davies emphasized how this type of matchmaking damages boxing's credibility with casual fans who might not understand the technical implications. New viewers see headlines about a massive fight without comprehending that they're being sold a fundamentally flawed product. The sport already struggles with perception issues, and mismatches like this only reinforce criticism that modern boxing prioritizes money over merit.
Gervonta, I don't know, what if Jake hits him? You know, Jake's a big guy. I don't know if Gervonta stood next to Jake. Jake's a big guy.
Yeah, he's a big dude, yeah.
And Gervonta is small even by lightweight standards.
Right.
So it is a little bit of a David.
The narrative manipulation became even more apparent when analysts began deconstructing Paul's promotional strategy. Expert commentators revealed how the story of this being a real challenge was misleading, specifically because of the weight difference that made competitive balance impossible. Paul's team had masterfully crafted a storyline that presented Davis as a dangerous threat while conveniently ignoring the physical realities that would heavily favor their fighter. This manipulation extended beyond simple promotion into the realm of athletic theater. Paul's supporters could point to Davis's knockout power and championship pedigree while downplaying the fact that such attributes become significantly less relevant when facing someone nearly 70 pounds heavier. The promotional machine sold Davis's speed and timing as equalizers, but physics doesn't care about highlight reels or impressive resumes when the fundamental competitive balance has been compromised from the start.
As we all know, as a competitive sport boxing fan, this is nonsense. It doesn't make any sense for the sport, for Tank as a world champion fighting Jake Paul, as Jake Paul trying to become a world champion fighting Tank. None of that makes sense. Business-wise, this thing's gonna blow up.
What made Paul's approach particularly concerning was how it exploited boxing fans' desire for authentic competition while delivering something fundamentally different. The marketing suggested that Davis's skills would be enough to overcome any physical disadvantages, creating false hope for competitive balance that the numbers simply couldn't support. This type of narrative construction damages boxing's credibility by training fans to accept manufactured drama as legitimate sport.
Just because of the massive weight disadvantage for Tank Davis, and again, yes, he's a world champion level boxer, but at a certain point, weight classes exist for a reason. Jake has enough experience now to be able to defend himself at least somewhat, even against some higher level guys, if he doesn't want to be knocked out or if he doesn't want to be put in bad positions. Now, if he's coming in and fighting some of those higher level guys at his weight class, then the holes will be exposed. And that may happen here, but Tank's ability...
The deeper issue revealed by this controversy wasn't just about one potential fight. It was about the direction of professional boxing as entertainment versus athletic competition. Paul's success had come from carefully selected opponents and strategic advantages, but this potential matchup exposed the extent to which competitive integrity could be sacrificed for promotional value. Davis, despite his legitimate credentials, was being positioned as a willing participant in what amounted to athletic theater rather than pure sport.
Gervonta, I don't know, what if Jake hits him? You know, Jake's a big guy. I don't know if Gervonta stood next to Jake. Jake's a big guy.
Yeah, he's a big dude,
and,
yeah.
And Gervonta is small even by lightweight standards.
Right.
So it is a little bit of a David.
Boxing experts took an even darker turn in their analysis, focusing on the safety implications of such a severe weight mismatch. The 65-pound weight gap wasn't just about competitive balance. It represented a potential danger that violated the fundamental principles of why weight classes exist in the first place. Experts emphasized that Paul is a cruiserweight, Davis is a lightweight, and such divisions exist specifically to prevent the type of physical mismatch being proposed. The safety concerns weren't theoretical academic exercises, but real-world applications of decades of boxing knowledge. Weight classes developed because the sport learned, often through tragic examples, that certain physical disparities create unacceptable risks regardless of skill levels. When experts labeled the situation dangerous, they weren't being dramatic. They were applying hard-earned wisdom about what happens when basic safety protocols get ignored for entertainment value.
Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua was getting closer and closer for January. However, there have been rumours of Gervonta Davis versus Jake Paul in the past. I think with Gervonta Davis's kind of legal problems in the last month or so and rumours about his retirement, I don't think it's a massive shock that he is taking this Jake Paul fight if it is going to go ahead, purely for the reason that it's a lot of money for maybe not the most difficult job that he's going to have in his career. So it's a strange one, but yeah, it's just another kind of day in the sport, really.
The technical breakdown revealed layers of problems beyond simple size differences. Davis's entire fighting style, developed around speed and timing advantages over similarly sized opponents, would be fundamentally compromised against someone with Paul's physical dimensions. The reach advantage, weight advantage, and structural differences would neutralize many of the technical skills that made Davis successful in his natural division. This wasn't just about who would win, it was about whether competitive elements could even function under such circumstances.
This today on social media, wherever you happen to get the news, were you like, what? Like, can that actually be, man?
Nah, I'm not shocked. I mean, his last fight when he fought Lamar, Jake Paul was at the fight. He told y'all he was going to fight somebody like Jake Paul. So I'm not shocked. It don't surprise me. So
medical experts and athletic commissioners have spent decades refining weight class systems specifically to prevent these types of mismatches. The proposed fight would essentially ignore generations of safety knowledge in favor of generating headlines and pay-per-view sales. Boxing's governing bodies created elaborate systems to ensure competitive balance, but celebrity boxing seemed determined to circumvent every protection designed to preserve athletic integrity. Boxing legends weighed in with their own perspectives, describing the matchup as representing a cultural cringe that damaged the sport's reputation. Former champions and respected veterans emphasized that Davis should fight someone his size, not Jake Paul, pointing out that legitimate competition requires fundamental fairness that this proposed bout completely abandoned. Their criticism wasn't about personal dislike for either fighter, but about protecting boxing's integrity from becoming pure entertainment spectacle. The legends' reactions carried particular weight because they represented boxing's historical standards and traditional values. These were fighters who had earned their reputations through legitimate competition, facing opponents within reasonable physical parameters that allowed skill to determine outcomes. When they expressed concern about modern matchmaking trends, they were defending principles that had guided boxing through its greatest eras.